In doing this show, I'm very fortunate. I meet a lot of great and smart leaders from software, and they're building their businesses and doing it in different ways. And I love hearing all these different approaches and how they're doing it and how they became successful. And James Weir is awesome. He's super smart about what he's done. He spent a year researching the problem that he thought people needed to solve to make sure that it wasn't just his problem, that other people had the problem. He talked with all kinds of perfect customers. He did that effort and then built the product to what they said. And afterwards, as he's made decisions, he's always done it looking at his own decision-making process to make sure that he's not making emotional decisions or just making snap decisions. He wants to make sure that the decisions he's making are smart decisions each time. And he explains his process here. I think it's really interesting. I think you can get a lot out of it. So enjoy this one.
Welcome to Scale Your SaaS, the podcast that gives you proven techniques and formulas for boosting your revenue and achieving your dream exit. Brought to you by a guy who's done just that multiple times. Here's your host, Matt Wolach.
And welcome to Scale Your SaaS. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for listening on the podcast network or watching on YouTube. Really appreciate you being here. Definitely make sure you're subscribed to the show. You do not want to miss any of the amazing people we have coming up. Lots of leaders who've done great things with their companies who are going to share their story with you so you can learn how to scale your SaaS. And today we have one of those such leaders. I am so excited to be joined by James Weir. James, how you doing?
Great, Matt. How are you?
I'm doing really well also, and really, really glad you're here. Thank you so much. I want to make sure everybody knows. I want to make sure everybody, thank you. Good. I'm glad. I want people to understand who you are because you've got a great story. So James is the founder and CEO at ndaOK. And ndaOK is transforming the way investment banks and private equity investors process NDAs. The solution was built from the ground up to serve unique needs of deal teams, and they really know NDAs and the issues that matter to their clients. And really, James's strengths are building high-performance teams, managing risk, and finding creative solutions to problems. So he's got a lot to share with us, and I can't wait. James, thanks again for coming on the show.
Well, that was a great intro. I don't know if I can add anything to it. We might as well just kind of wrap up here because it's probably going to be all downhill. That was great. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. But tell me, what's going on with you lately and what's coming up?
Yeah, so ndaOK, we launched 2.5 years ago, but we keep growing, we keep expanding. In the last few months, we just released our latest update, which incorporates OpenAI's GPT-4 AI into our AI review and redlining process. And so we're rolling that out to new customers every week. And it's been great. It's been great to see just how that's been, what it's done to our process internally and what we've been able to offer our customers as a result.
Very cool. I love that. How did you come up with this whole thing?
It was something that I'm probably the most reluctant founder in history. I had no plans of ever launching a company and no interest in it really, but I practiced law in New York for 11 years before my family, we moved to Austin, Texas. And I decided I just didn't want to practice law anymore. And so I started to explore other things and ended up as the COO of a tech company that was using artificial intelligence, great company that was using AI to identify and categorize household hazardous waste to divert it into more effective and efficient waste streams. And from there, helped build that company. But then there was an opportunity to move into the CFO role at a software company where we were building enterprise software, and I had to deal with 2 or 3 non-disclosure agreements a week.
Wow.
And I did that for 2.5 years and just thought there's got to be a better way to do this. This is insane. These agreements are just, very standardized nuisance-y agreements that are really just a threshold, kind of gatekeeper function for deals. There's got to be a way that we can simplify that review, automate that process for companies so it isn't nearly as painful because I had experienced that pain firsthand for, like I said, 2.5 years. And so it was an idea that I couldn't shake. And so I reached out to the AI advisor of that first company that I had worked with in Austin. I hadn't spoken to him in a couple of years, and I just said, look, I have this idea. Can artificial intelligence do this type of work? Can it review a contract, and mark it up. Certainly for a simple NDA. And I was half hoping that this guy, his name is Russell Foltz-Smith. He's, one of the preeminent, AI advisors, and he was the first employee at Wolfram Alpha. So if that means something to your listeners, that should tell you all you need to know. And I was half hoping he was going to say no. AI, as great as it is not sophisticated enough to read a contract or certainly redline it. And I was half hoping he was going to say that so I could kind of drop the idea and move on with the rest of my life. But instead he said, yes, that's exactly, and more so, not only can it do that, but that's exactly the sort of routine nuisance-y type work that AI should be doing instead of people. Wow. And he said, you know what? I want to help you get it off the ground. And so at that point, I really didn't have a choice. He's seen a million of these things. And if he thought it was a good idea, then I kind of had to do it. So that's how we got started. That was back in late 2019. And then we really just, spent about a year really researching and, kicking the tires on the idea. It's one thing that, for me to have a problem that I want to solve, but does anybody else have that problem? Is it just me being frustrated with dealing with the same thing over and over again? And, and that's just something that I have to deal with? Or is this a problem that other companies were experiencing? And that's what we found, that I wasn't alone. NDAs pose huge problems for basically, any company, right? Even if you're a B2C company, at some point you're signing a non-disclosure agreement, right? It's either with a supplier or a partner, somebody. And so after learning, that validating that, okay, this was a need that people had, and validating, well, here are our ideas on how we can solve that, and people getting excited about that. That's when we really, dug in and started building the product. And then we launched in early 2021.
Very cool. I love that you had those conversations, because so many times people are building products and they haven't gone out into their market and really talked with perfect fit customers to understand what are the real problems, how deep is that problem, and would you even pay money for that, and really getting to the heart of it. And I'm so glad you did that, because I've done a lot of these shows, 200 some of these episodes with software founders, and the ones who are the most successful have said, we've had so many conversations with our market, with our perfect targets, that we really have a good understanding of what everybody's facing, not just what we're thinking about. And we know how to build the product. It makes it easier to market your services and speak their language. It makes it easier to sell and set up your sales process correctly. Sounds like it set you guys up nicely.
Yeah, and like I said, I didn't set out to start a company, right? And I know that there are lots of founders out there that are just, that's their DNA. They want to be a builder. They want to be a founder, and they're champing at the bit to start something. They just need that idea. And, it's usually that first or second idea that they come up with. And then you get into the unfortunate position of having, a solution in need of a problem. Or you have an engineer that's like, well, I could build this really cool thing, and wouldn't that be amazing? Well, yeah, but does anybody need it? Does anybody want that? And so I took it much more from the user perspective is, well, this was a product that I want and need. And of course, the cruel irony of this is the idea was born out of the fact that I never wanted to look at an NDA ever again. And of course, now that's all I do and think about.
That is cruel irony, that's for sure. A lot of our listeners, they're part of new startups, just like you. And I want to understand, okay, you've got the idea, you talk to these people. How did you get off the ground? How did you start making your first sales? Yeah,
so we didn't actually start. I mean, having come from other startups, I knew the importance of not messing around and getting to revenue as quickly as possible. I think there was a time when startups could raise a lot of funding and be, pre-revenue for a long time. And, and that was perfectly fine. But we were entering a phase when ndaOK started where that was no longer the preferred path, that we, it would be better for us as a company to get to revenue as quickly as possible. But we needed a product first. And so those first sales weren't really sales. They were talking to potential customers, talking to contacts, talking to people that responded to surveys that we sent out to say, or even just having, our website up with, a button to sign up for a demo, which at the time didn't exist. Talking with those people and saying, well, hey, this is what we're building. This is what we're trying to do. And those people, or just asking them, how can we solve this problem for you? And then hearing from them what kind of features they needed, what they needed the product to do. We didn't have to sell to them. Once we said, okay, great, that's what we're going to build. Do you want to be one of our early testers? Invariably, they said, yes, we want this. We want, after we showed them kind of what we were going to do, they signed up and volunteered to be our testers. And then from there, once, we worked out the kinks, they were ready to be our customers. So we really started from the foundation of, okay, there's a whole universe of customers, but here's a group of 10 is what we started with. 10 companies that have this problem, that are going to stick with us as we build the product that they have told us they need. And of course, everybody has, different, priorities or preferences, and we need this or we need that. But by having, by talking to so many different people, we kind of got it down to, okay, it needs to have this functionality. And we could kind of see that what the process needed to be like for them and what the user experience needed to be. And so really those first sales just came out of those early conversations of discovery for who our customers are and what that product needs to be. And then from there, we understood the customer base really well. We understood, what markets we wanted to address, who had the pain point, but who, where was it really acute or chronic pain points for them? We, as you mentioned at the top, we work primarily right now with, private equity firms and investment banks. Well, they're dealing with hundreds of NDAs every year. In fact, our average private equity user is dealing with, anywhere between 400 and 600 NDAs a year.
Wow.
They're doing multiple NDAs every day. And so it is a chronic, constant pain point for them. And that's, that's really how we got started, was just focusing on the user and what they needed rather than, well, what can we build?
We'll be right back. Scale Your SaaS is supported by ToroWave. Lots of software leaders I talk to are looking to scale their SaaS. And I keep hearing over and over about one major struggle: getting ghosted by buyers after the demo. How frustrating is it when you have a great demo, you're feeling good, they like it, it seems like a done deal, and then crickets, nothing. You reach out, they're not responding to you at all. And when these software companies, they ask me to dive in, I notice that these sellers are following up the wrong way, or actually I should say with the wrong medium. What they're doing is they're hammering emails over and over again. I got a news flash for you. Email effectiveness is dwindling down and down every year. So why beat your head against the wall losing all kinds of business? Start texting, mix in texts along with emails and calls, and watch your conversion rates go up. In fact, conversion rates go up by about 50% when you use texting as part of the follow-up. People are used to it. And did you know the response rate on texts is 98%? 98%. So why throw emails into a black hole knowing that they're never going to get returned? Text buyers and get results. But don't use your own phone. All kinds of security and compliance issues if you do. Also, none of that data is with your company. That's not good. Instead, use this system, ToroWave. ToroWave is designed for sales. It makes texting with buyers super simple and fast, and it helps drive more deals. Deals that you've been losing until now. For being a listener, you get 50% off your first month of using ToroWave. 50% off. Just go to torowave.com/scale. That's TOROWAVE.com/scale. Get signed up and start winning more deals, like Tracy, who closed $170,000 in 3 days after starting. Again, go to torowave.com/scale. Catch up and win by texting with ToroWave. And we're back. I love that. And so you found your niche. And did you find that once you niched down, that it was a lot easier to kind of focus on that? It was a lot easier to get them to understand this is something that can help you?
Yeah, I don't have a sales background. And one of the things that I knew we were onto something as someone without a sales background, when I didn't really have to explain the problem to people. If I met somebody and said, hey, ndaOK, we help, we automate the processing of non-disclosure agreements. If they didn't, if they said, oh, well, how big a market is that, or what kind of, how is that really a problem for people? I knew immediately they weren't our customer. But more often than not, all I would have to say is, oh, ndaOK, if I met somebody, at a conference or something, I'd say, well, ndaOK, we automate the processing of non-disclosure agreements. And people would light up and they would say, oh, that's a problem that I have. Can you simplify, the NDA review and execution process? And that's, so I didn't have to explain like, well, this is what we can do for you. They, just by virtue of saying, well, we fixed this problem for you, they immediately understood like the value that we were able to deliver for them.
I love that. One of the best advantages of finding that niche that everybody already gets it and just showing them, hey, there is an answer.
You either have the problem and you understand it, or you don't. In which case, no amount of explaining or convincing is going to turn you into a customer, because you don't have the problem. You don't need what we're selling.
Yeah, and I think that's so smart to understand. I mean, if you tried to sell this to me, I'm like, well, the last time I saw an NDA was like 2020. So
yeah, and I would say, you know what, that's great. You don't need us, and thank goodness you don't. If I could convince the world we don't need these agreements anymore and they're kind of useless, I would. But I can't. You can't change people's feelings about these, or they're it's just fully ingrained in their process. So if we can't eliminate the problem, how can we just make it easier and less painful for them?
I love that, and I love that you didn't like freak out that, oh no, we can't sell to these people or these people. You realized these are perfect fits. And I think too many times early stage, we just want all the revenue we can get. We take anybody we can get without realizing that, one, the sales process will be a lot harder. They're not going to fully get it. So you have to, like you said, explain it more. And number two, even if they do sign up, they're going to hate the product. It's not going to help them. They're going to quit. They're going to tell people it's terrible. And now you're worse off.
And that's a great point. So early, and we kind of went through that process, and the way I see it, it's almost like an hourglass, right? We started really wide, saying, okay, basically everybody's got this problem. Everybody needs to sign an NDA at some point. So the universe could be, everybody could be a customer. Mm-hmm. And what we found with a lot of our early customers, even the people that were saying, hey, wow, this is a really, really difficult problem for us. We really need help with this. Well, we could get them signed up, but if they only were dealing with, 2 or 3 NDAs a month, well, it may have been painful for them, but not enough to pay for a solution. Mm-hmm. And so we started to narrow down the field of, the customer types that we could address. And I always knew that private equity firms and investment banks dealt with a ton of them. We didn't market to them initially because we wanted to iron out all the, make sure that we could handle that volume before we started to, to work with them. But then we started to develop that focus. And now, as we've really nailed that market and that customer segment, now we're starting to spread out and go wider again and start to deal with enterprise sales teams and real estate investors and others that have that problem at a large enough scale where a solution is important for them.
Love it. Love it. So we talked about some of the good things you did. You niched down. It's great. What mistakes do you feel like you made that you wish you had done differently?
I've made a ton of mistakes. I mean, we've all made mistakes. It's hard to say, for every mistake we've made, it's been based on the best information we've had at the time, or our best, assessment of the market or the customer or what the product needs to be. And some of those assumptions and data that we had weren't correct. I don't have any regrets about it, though. We've learned. I've taken lessons away from those things, but I don't have any regrets, or I don't wish we had done anything differently. Because if we got everything right all the time, we wouldn't have learned anything. And in fact, if you're getting everything right all the time, then you're probably missing some big opportunity because you haven't, you're not doing enough to know where the limits are.
I would agree. And I would also say if you're getting it right all the time, you're probably not hungry to make sure you're doing everything just right. Because when you mess up, you're like, oh, I don't want that to happen again. Let me make sure I double and triple check this and make sure I really research this thing. And it kind of gives you that motivation to want to make everything just right. Because you know that if you don't do that, it's going to go bad.
That's right. And there are always ways to improve our process. And, if we're not making mistakes or missing opportunities, and learning, about those opportunities that we're missing, then we're not growing. And we're being a little too cautious. So there's a balance. I don't love the whole, go fast and break things and, mentality that a lot of companies have. I want to be smart and deliberative, but I also don't want that to get in the way of learning and the growth that we can achieve.
Yeah, I think that's super smart. What advice would you have for other early stage leaders who are seeking to build a successful business like you've done? Yeah,
I honestly, I haven't done it enough different ways to say, well, do this, don't do that. But what I mentioned about my own journey, be skeptical about your own ideas. Don't just think that, oh, well, I think that this is a great idea. Everybody else is going to agree with me. Test every idea, every hypothesis you have. Reach out to as many people as you can to talk about the idea. Learn, just hear their perspective on things. I have friends in other industries that, maybe have great ideas for things that they want to try, but they're not, they're in traditional industries where they don't necessarily, they don't know the startup market very well. And they're afraid to get started just because they don't, they don't want to share their idea with someone. They're afraid, somebody might steal it or somebody might, run off with it. And you're just not going to, you're going to be, the inertia is going to kill you that way. And so you've got to just move forward and talk to people, test your assumptions, and only then will you know that you actually have something. You should want to be challenged. You should want people to push back on your ideas and say, I don't see that. And we had that a few times, but we also had, in the conversations early on that I had, overwhelmingly people said, oh, wow, that would be great. I'd really like that. It was rare to get challenged, but I loved getting challenged because then I had to think, well, shoot, am I not explaining it the right way? Or am I overestimating this market? Am I only talking to the people that are agreeing with me? So I think that's the really important thing, because what's going to happen if you do that is you're going to end up in a situation where it's going to refine the idea, but you're going to have a product that people want, rather than saying, okay, I'm a brilliant engineer, as I mentioned before. Not me, but I mentioned earlier, brilliant engineers, they go out and they say, well, I can build this amazing system, but who needs it, right? Who wants that? Are you actually solving a problem? And I think, a lot of companies spend a lot of money going down blind alleys where they think they know what the product needs to be, but they haven't gotten it in the hands of their users yet to know, oh, these are features that they actually don't care about. They care about these things over here, and we need to build that first.
I agree. I think you're super smart with how you approach this. It seems like you do a great job of double checking, researching, and then going back and making sure that you're not just thinking of it one way. Because I think as leaders, we make a lot of emotional decisions, whether we like to think so or not. I like to think I'm not, but I look back, I'm like, yeah, that was an emotional decision. And I love that you're kind of checking yourself. So
thank
well
you.
done on that.
I hope it's one thing to say it. Hopefully I'm living up to that. But yeah, thank you.
Sounds like you are. Well, this has been great. How can our audience learn more about you and ndaOK?
Yeah, so real simple, www.ndaOK, just the letters, ndaok.com. And, we've primarily targeted private equity firms and investment banks, but we're, if you have to deal with NDAs, we've seen all of those scenarios. We help, we have a very flexible solution where, we can either just provide the review and the redlining, or we can handle the end-to-end process, everything from the review, the redlining, to the negotiations and the executions, all so that we can make it as simple as uploading a NDA and waiting to get a notification that the whole process is done. And we're also fast and, cost effective. So those are two added bonuses. But ndaOK.com, you can shoot an email to info@ndaok.com, and if you reference this, that'll get brought to my attention, and happy to have a conversation with anyone interested in learning more.
Okay, perfect. We'll put all that into the show notes as well. So if you're listening, you can grab it right there. But he's James Weir. James, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Yeah, Matt, really appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Absolutely. And everybody else out there, thanks for being here. Really appreciate you doing that and listening and soaking up everything we're giving you. Make sure you're subscribed to the show. You don't want to miss out any other amazing leaders like James. So hit that subscribe button, and then we will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Scale Your SaaS. For more help on finding great leads and closing more deals, go to mattwolach.com.